I got a cow that went dry and a hen that won't lay.
Okay, Supervisor Avalos, you've mentioned the idea of finding ways to raise revenue for the city to cover the budget crisis. One idea that's been floating around is the idea of a city income tax. How feasible is that, in your opinion?
So the question is an income tax in San Francisco. About 12 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, Tom Amiano was looking at an income tax that was straight income tax for people working in San Francisco. I believe it was viewed unconstitutional, and there was a drafting process that happened, and it was taken off. It was stopped mid-tracks. I have heard that. Well, the Guardian put out a bunch of ideas around how we can raise revenue, and one of them was to do some kind of was to do some kind of I'm not sure this works that well.
Yeah, see, it does.
It's better without.
Without. The Guardian put out some ideas about doing an income tax, but I haven't seen the real details of what they're talking about yet. I'm interested in looking at that. I think it would be something that we'd have to go to the ballot for that. It would be very hard to pass. It wasn't a straight income tax, but it was some kind of tax that was based on wealth that was created in San Francisco rather than a straight income tax. So logistically, I'm not sure how possible it is, but it's certainly worth taking a look at. And 10 years ago or 12 years ago, when Amiano was looking at this, that was probably before the Bush tax cut that was in effect. So there's a whole level of taxation that's out there. People's tax responsibility, the very highest level of income, has not been brought back to our city and state and national government that I think we can bring back to restore a lot of key services.
Thank you. Lou?
Thanks, Mike and John, for being here. We've had deficits the last many years, and we've taken lots of cuts to the budget, lots of whacks at the budget, and here we are finding ourselves in this position, not only again, but far worse than it's probably ever been that any of us can remember. And you're talking about $450 million out of $1.2 billion discretionary. That's over a third. That's not going to happen from just cutting this or that little thing here or there. It's not going to be the easy choices. It's not even going to be some of the tough choices. It's going to be horrible, horrible choices. And I want to know what are some legitimate things that are being considered right now to take whacks at, and what we need to be aware is being considered. The budget's coming out in a couple months. What are we going to be hearing?
So I'll speak to some of the stuff that John just spoke about, but these are ideas. They're not the mayor's ideas, they're not John's ideas, so I don't want them attributed to one or the other, right? So there's, we're starting to charge for the botanical gardens, which we've never charged for before, which is the first time thing, which we don't like to do. We're about to, just in Rec and Park, we're about to charge for parking, not meters, but there's going to be charged for parking in Golden Gate Park, and they're looking at Chrissy Field as well. There's, we have a lot of assets that we could use as a one-time, or basically our parking garages could be long-term leased or sold that would give us a lot of short-term money, but these are, sustainable, dedicated, really well-performing assets, but you could get an infusion of cash to be able to deal with some of your deficits. These are all things that we would never, ever contemplate in previous budgets, and we are. I just want to go through something you mentioned as well. Deficits in each of the past 10 years. Mid-year spending reductions in 4 of the last 10 years. Renegotiation of closed labor contracts in 7 of the last 10 years. And voter consideration of tax increases in 8 of the 10 last years. So it is, we're at a point here, but it hasn't been great prior to that, right? We've been struggling with this every year. I have to tell you, more so than any year that I've been in the mayor's office, we're looking at things that we've always thought of but never contemplated, and now, as I told you, these are some of the things we're contemplating. Increase in fees regarding Tiny Tots programs. Again, not going to close your $500 million gap, but Rec and Park's budget cut was 8.4. Yeah, significant, right? $11 million, and there's no set aside for them, or DPW or public health. So, looking at a lot of things we've never looked at before. So those are some of them.
And just to say, I think we need to look at how we balance the budget and the budget process, and so we can do better planning. So one idea that's come out of the budget improvement process that control the mayor's office, maybe some board members and city departments are taking part in, is looking at how we can do more long-term strategic planning instead of this year-to-year thing that we do to balance the budget every year, so that we can make decisions in time, expecting what's going to happen in, a couple of years ahead. I also, several supervisors are putting forward charter amendments to change the budget process, and I expect that there's going to be some kind of merging of a lot of these ideas in the Rules Committee, probably in June. But some of the ideas that are coming forward, some of them are probably more doable than others, or there's more political will to do them than others, are to do a two-year budget process, to line up MOUs, for negotiate labor agreements before the budget's finalized, so you actually have to do it knowing what kind of money you're going to have, to create an independent budget office so that you actually take out a lot of politics between the mayor's office and the board of supervisors around the budget. You have a separate entity that does the budget creation process, to get the budget from the mayor's office earlier in the process, so that the board can have a longer amount of time to scrutinize the budget. Today, the fire department was before us, and we're talking about brownouts. And I said, well, I think we should consider brownouts for the fire department, because we've already doing brownouts for our mental health services, our public health services, our primary clinics. We're doing brownouts for rec and park directors. We're doing brownouts for our health and human services, for foster care services, for employment services. We're doing brownouts of staffing. So I think it's important that we kind of share the weight and share the burden of that responsibility. The firefighters have linked out like Prop F, which was on the ballot in 2005, saying we're protected from. Our budget's protected by the voters because it's a set-aside we've created, but it wasn't a charter amendment, and the city budget is an ordinance which can override whatever mandates they're trying to set in place, and we talked about that today. And so I think that it's possible to be able to look at ways that we can have minimal rolling blackouts in certain parts of the city to get some money from the fire department and push them on other things that they're not looking at in their budgets. I think they haven't been pushed hard enough by the mayor's office yet, and that can happen still in their budget balancing. But we also have to get revenue, and I want to go to the ballot. I wanted to go to the ballot in June, but there wasn't political will for that. I wanted to go in July, and there's no will for that. It's November. I think the mayor's talking about that as well. Things I'm looking at are a downtown commercial parcel tax, looking at commercial office buildings that are over maybe 5 stories. They would get taxed at a certain amount. We could bring in some revenue. I'm looking at a small part of a sales tax that can bring in some revenue as well. Looking at a residential parcel tax. Looking at looking at a vehicle license fee as well that might be able to use some money from Muni. So there are a number of things that we can add up together and hopefully can get us to about $100 million that we can restore or prevent from some of our key services from being cut. So it's multi-pronged effect, but I think it's looking at how we balance the budget and also revenue as well, and making hard choices around the cuts that some of our sacred cows in city departments like police and fire department.